Hey guys, it's Darwin here with my weekly Q&A to answer more of your questions. If you want to ask a question for next week's Q&A, you can either leave it in the comment box below or send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then next week I'll answer as many as I possibly can. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this week's first question. How do you choose the questions you answer in your weekly videos? So, thought I'd start the Q&A off with a Q&A question. So how I usually choose my questions for these Q&As is I just run through my comments and I try to look for comments and questions that I've never answered before, something that's challenging or something that is a benefit to most of the viewers on the channel. So I do get a lot of questions and there are a lot of things that I don't answer. If I haven't answered your question in the past, sorry. Like I said, I have answered so many questions. I think we're on like 36 now. So I try to answer things that I've never answered before. So chances are if I haven't answered your question, I probably answered it in a previous Q&A. And then if I don't think that the question is gonna benefit the entire group, the entire audience here on my channel, I don't typically answer it. Now, one thing that I did want to say, if you do send me a video question, send me a video question in a video file attached to the email. There's a lot of times that I get video questions and they're either uploaded to YouTube, they're in a Dropbox, they're on Google Video or something like that. Just attach it to your email and send it to me. That is the best way that I can use your question in my video. I'll be starting a northbound through on the AT starting mid-March. Do you think it is important to have the exact itinerary on resupplies? Or would you recommend just going with the flow and figuring it out on the trail with AWOL? So there are a lot of people that do both. When Snuggles and I first set out to hike the AT in 15, we kind of had an itinerary. We kind of knew where we were gonna resupply and where we weren't gonna resupply, and that went away really quick. The thing is, when you're out on the trail, you kind of start getting into a groove on the trail and you figure out how many days you can go with how much food. And then some weeks you might hike bigger miles than other weeks. So you're constantly changing how you resupply and where you resupply and what you resupply on. So I would personally suggest just going with the flow, going off of AWOL and not sitting down and writing all that stuff out, because as I've seen with us and with a lot of other hikers, it never works out and it goes out the window in the first week. So don't put the work in on it. Just get out there, you'll figure it out while you're on the trail and you won't have so much to worry about.
Hey Darwin, it's Brian from British Columbia, Canada. My question is, have you ever heard of the Great Divide Trail? And if so, would you hike it? If you want more info on it, you can check it out at www.greatdividetrail.com. Love your videos, keep up the good work, and happy trails.
So no, I've never hiked the Great Divide Trail myself. Yeah, I have actually thought about it, and I've been thinking about it a lot lately. John Z, who has a channel here on YouTube, he's another hiker. If you're not familiar with him, you should definitely go check his channel out. He recently put out a video series of his Great Divide hike this year, and they are amazing. It is such a beautiful trail, and it looks super rugged. So it's definitely on my list for the future to hike. I'm curious about trail etiquette on through hikes. What are some of the ways people respect each other's space and individual journeys while still engaging with new people? So there is a lot of trail etiquette in a lot of different ways. Ways that you should act in a shelter, ways that you should act in a town, ways that you should act with other hikers. I actually did a video earlier in the year called Trail Etiquette. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link up here, and that'll kind of, I think, describe some of the most common trail etiquettes out on the AT, or at least in my opinion. But trail etiquette is all going to depend on the person that you're talking to. A lot of different people have a lot of different opinions on what proper trail etiquette is. I think though the main thing you could kind of sum it all up with is just respect each other. Respect other hikers and you'll get the same respect in return. Don't annoy people at shelters. Be respectful whenever you go into a town and don't act like a jerk. And it should just be common sense, everyday duh stuff. But like I said, go check that video out where I kind of go over some of the specific trail etiquettes on the AT. What is your plan for water for the initial 700 desert miles of the PCT? 2 liters a day? What's the most water weight you think you'll carry at one time? So for that first 700 miles of the PCT, I am planning on 5 liters. So that is 3 smart water bottles. I have a little pocket where I can hold one up here. I'll have 2 on the side. And then I have my Knock Vecto water bladder. That is a 2-liter bladder. Now, most times I won't carry water in that, but if there is a super dry section where I think I'm gonna need extra water, I'll fill that up and either strap it to the top of my pack or put it in my mesh pocket on the back. As far as weight, I think it's like, is it 2 pounds a liter or something? So that's, so like close to 10 pounds of extra weight. It's a lot of weight and I'm not looking forward to it. It will be super great when I get to Kennedy Meadows after that desert section and be able to, take it back down to like 2 liters at a time. What's your advice for maintaining relationships with family and friends while you're out on a thru hike? Did y'all ever feel like you missed too much? No, and Snuggles and I aren't hardcore family people. Obviously we have a family, we love them very much, but they kind of have their own separate thing, we have our own separate thing. Most of both of our families are back in Indiana, and obviously we're not anymore. We do so much traveling, so we do still keep in touch with them. And then on the trail, every once in a while we would make a phone call, post something on the internet. I think one of the best ways to kind of let your family and your friends know how you're doing on the trail and keep a relationship with them is starting something like a YouTube channel, starting a blog, having a Facebook page or an Instagram, so your family can watch your journey and see what you're doing. It's a great way to share that. And that's how I started this YouTube channel. I started this YouTube channel so I could share my stuff with my friends, and then it developed into something else. But yeah, I just think every once in a while, updating your family and friends, letting them know how your journey's doing, maybe accepting a few mail drops from them, which is really nice. That's the best way to keep that relationship going.
Hey Darwin, giving you a look at this 4-walled office that I live in 8 hours a day while I watch your videos on the internet. My question for you is about campfires. Campfires are good for light and for heat and for camaraderie with your fellow campers. How often do you build a campfire, or do you just bypass it and just cook your food and get in your tent and go to bed? I appreciate the videos. Keep up the good work.
So it all depends on what trail I'm on. Out on the AT, yeah, we made a fire a lot. I would say every other night we would try to make a fire, especially in the beginning because it was kind of coming out of winter going into spring, so it was still super cold all the time. Yeah, we made a campfire a lot. And then obviously it's just great hiker TV to sit around the campfire for all the hikers to talk. It's really relaxing. A good form of meditation, I think, is making a good campfire. Now on trails like the Arizona Trail or the Continental Divide Trail, no. There's so many burn bans where it's way too dangerous to start a fire because of how dry it is. And even in some of those areas where it's technically okay, I still don't do it. And that's just because like one little spark, one little ember can fly off the fire and start an entire forest fire. I don't know if you guys seen what happened to the Columbia River Gorge, which is in Cascade Locks, which if you're familiar with the PCT, it's where the Bridge of the Gods is. It's whenever you cross into Washington, your last state. That entire gorge caught on fire this year. And it was because someone made a fire, and it was because of one ember, one spark. So it all depends. It really depends on the area that I'm in. Have you or hikers you run into experienced any type of animosity towards race, sexual orientation, or even political orientation while on the trail or in a town? Crazy divided nation we have. That's a deep question. No, I don't think that I've ever really seen that out on the trail. For the most part, when you're out on a trail, you're around so many like-minded people, and that's the magic of a thru hike. That's the magic of being on a trail, is that race and color and sexual orientation, political, none of that matters because you're all out there having this awesome journey or terrible journey, and going through the same thing, whether it's a good day or it's a bad day. So all that stuff kind of goes out the window. Now I'm sure it does exist here and there, but I've never seen it. The only thing I've ever really seen is like if there was a hiker that was just being a complete terrible hiker, which there's been a few, there's definitely animosity towards that person. and the community kind of comes together and makes sure that that person isn't taken lightly. I'm not going to mention any names, but in 2015, there was a certain hiker on the trail that didn't have a good reputation. He said really terrible things, he did really terrible things in town, and he was outcasted, and eventually he was pushed off the trail. So that's the only type of animosity that I've seen on the trail, is towards hikers that are just being crap bags. But yeah, no, it's not a very divided place. Everyone is just hiker trash out there. What day are you getting your permit to start the PCT? I'm hiking it next year too. So Jack, I actually just applied for my permit, and the date that I chose was April the 3rd. So I think that's a Tuesday. I'll be pushing off on the Mexican border and headed towards Canada. I actually got up super early on the day that permits opened, and I got my permit within the first 20 minutes. Now, obviously, as you might know, the permit system, you apply for it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you get the permit. You have to wait for it to be approved. So I'm still waiting for it to get approved, but I think that I got it. But yeah, good luck on the trail next year. Hopefully you got a good date, and I'll see you out there. All right guys, last question of the week. When I get ready to hike the AT, I really want the whole experience. One of the highlights of something like this is the camping experience just as much as the hiking part. Is it feasible to plan to never stay in a hotel or a hostel through the entire trail? Or is there sometimes I just have no choice? Like when coming into a town to resupply. Can you camp near the towns? I won't say I'd never stay in a shelter. If it just came down to hitting a shelter for safety of a storm, I'd do it, but I'd try to avoid it. What are your thoughts? Good question. So I think there's a lot of people that head out to the trail, especially the AT, that think like, every night I'm gonna camp on the trail for 5 months. I don't wanna stay in towns, I'm gonna save money. Can you do that? Yeah, absolutely you can. If you're gonna come into a town to resupply, take a shower, maybe get a box that you've sent yourself, and then get out of town and camp right on the edge of town, you can totally do that, no question about it. But the reality is you won't want to always do that. When you're out on the trail for 5 to 6 months and you're hiking every single day, you're cold, you're wet, you're hungry, you're hot, you're sticky, and you're just a huge bag of emotions, an emotional roller coaster that you're constantly riding. Whenever you get close to a town or even a day before a town, all you can think about is getting into a town, getting into a hostel, taking a shower, getting food, and crashing for the night, not being in the woods for the night. And that's what we all think going into it. Like, I can't wait to get out into the wilderness and be out in nature every single night. And it's amazing. Don't get me wrong, it is awesome to do that. But you will want to take that opportunity to every once in a while stay in a hostel and stay in a hotel just to kind of take yourself out of it. Because obviously, not only will you want to do that, but it's just good to take that mental break. And it makes you want the trail more. So when you're staying in a hostel or you're taking something like a 0 day, that whole day, all you're thinking about is getting back on the trail. So it creates more passion for the trail. And it's a good way to keep you on the trail. Like I said, it's an emotional roller coaster out there, and all the time, you will not want to be on the trail anymore. You'll try to convince yourself, you know what? I don't need to hike anymore. I've come this far, that's good enough for me. And staying in a town for the night and taking a break and taking your mind off of the trail is a great way to get inspiration to continue your hike. So you can plan on never staying in a hotel, never staying in a hostel, but I bet you will. All right guys, so if you have any questions for next week's Q&A, you can either leave them in the comment box below or send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then next week I'll answer as many as I possibly can. If you haven't had a chance yet, go over and check me out on Instagram. I've been posting a lot of new photos lately of some of the things that Snuggles and I have going on throughout the week, plus some pictures from some of my past hikes. If you found any value in this video, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always guys, thanks for watching.